spat on by a tourist. The Royal Guard's silent response that left us all in awe. Welcome to our channel, where stories of strength, dignity, and unforgettable moments come to life. We're so glad to have you here with us today. As you watch, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love connecting with viewers from around the world. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next incredible tale coming your way tomorrow. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to share more powerful stories with you. Let's dive in. In the heart of Buckingham Palace, amidst the hustle and bustle of the summer crowds, stood Guard Thomas Harris, a symbol of unwavering discipline and dedication. At 32 years old, Harris was no ordinary guard. His service to the crown stretched over 8 years, with 2 tours in Afghanistan, earning him commendations for his valor and commitment. Yet it wasn't just his military training that made him stand out. It was his respect for tradition, the quiet pride he felt every morning as he donned the royal uniform. Before dawn each day, Harris would rise, dedicating 3 hours to perfecting his appearance. Every button was polished to a mirror shine, every strap and buckle aligned with military precision. To an outsider, this might seem excessive. After all, the work of a royal guard is often seen as ceremonial. But for Harris, every detail mattered. The uniform he wore wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was a living symbol of the centuries of history, honor, and sacrifice that had come before him. Each crease, each fold, carried the weight of those who had stood guard before him. A legacy that demanded respect and unwavering commitment. On any given day, Harris would face the public eye, standing still for hours as tourists clicked photos and occasionally tried to provoke a reaction. Most of them admired him. Some even attempted playful jokes, but Harris knew the significance of his duty. Standing at attention in front of Buckingham Palace, he wasn't just a guard. He was a reminder of the tradition that has stood the test of time. For Harris, standing still wasn't about passivity. It was about embodying something greater than himself, something that transcended the moment. Each day, through heat, rain, or the stares of countless tourists, he faced it all with the same poise and dignity. In those quiet moments, Harris understood something others often overlooked. It wasn't about the photos or the fame. It was about what he represented: duty, honor, and sacrifice. He wore his uniform not as a symbol of personal glory, but as a tribute to the generations of guards who had stood before him. And every day he continued the tradition, knowing that his role went far beyond the ceremonial. He was a living testament to something greater than himself. As the day unfolded, the scene outside Buckingham Palace grew busier, the summer sun casting its golden rays on the ornate gates. Tourists from all over the world had gathered, eager to catch a glimpse of the royal guards. Among the crowd, a group of American tourists made their way toward Harris's post. At the forefront was Kevin Mitchell, a 29-year-old man dressed in an expensive polo shirt and designer sunglasses, exuding an air of entitlement that made him stand out among the crowd. His arrogance wasn't just in his attire, it was in the way he carried himself, as if the world owed him something, as if his wealth could command respect anywhere, even from a soldier at attention. Mitchell, already feeling the effects of alcohol, from a morning spent indulging in fine dining and cocktails, had one goal in mind: to challenge the guard, to prove that the stoic silence they displayed was nothing more than a weakness. His sense of entitlement led him to believe that, just as his money had opened doors for him in luxury hotels and exclusive clubs, it could also break through the composure of this guard. With a smug grin, he turned to his friends and bet them that he could make Harris crack. His friends, eager for entertainment, pulled out their phones, ready to capture what they assumed would be an amusing spectacle. The first few attempts were harmless, at least on the surface. Mitchell posed beside Harris, throwing exaggerated peace signs and making faces, all in an attempt to provoke a reaction. The tourists around them chuckled, some even encouraging Mitchell with laughter, feeding into the growing tension. However, Harris remained unmoved. His posture was flawless, his gaze fixed forward, and not a single muscle twitched. For a moment, it seemed as though Mitchell's attempts would be nothing more than a minor disturbance in an otherwise mundane day. But Mitchell, now emboldened by the attention and the slight slur of alcohol in his system, escalated his behavior. With a sense of superiority, he took a step closer to Harris, invading his personal space. "What's with the funny hat, man? Did you lose a bet?" He jeered, his voice carrying through the crowd. Despite the taunts, Harris didn't flinch. He remained as solid as the palace walls behind him. In that moment, the quiet strength of the guard was more evident than ever, but Mitchell wasn't done yet. The situation was quickly spiraling into something far more intense, and little did he know, he had just pushed the boundaries of respect too far. As the minutes ticked by, the tension around Buckingham Palace grew thicker. The tourists, once laughing and snapping photos, now stood in a collective silence, their eyes locked on the unfolding scene between Kevin Mitchell and guard Harris. Mitchell, having lost the charm of playful teasing, became more desperate. His frustration, fueled by alcohol and a growing need to prove his superiority, led him to take things further. He moved closer to Harris, his designer loafers scraping against the pavement as he deliberately invaded the guard's personal space. With a wicked grin, Mitchell leaned in, his breath thick with alcohol, and taunted, "Hey, robot, anyone home?" He waved his hand in front of Harris's face, expecting a reaction, but Harris didn't flinch, not even the slightest. In that moment, the contrast between them couldn't have been clearer. Mitchell swaying slightly from the effects of his indulgence, desperate for attention and validation. Harris steadfast and unwavering, a living symbol of discipline, honor, and duty. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the air itself had grown heavier. Harris could feel the tension shift, a subtle crackle in the atmosphere, as Mitchell's actions grew more deliberate. His posture remained unyielding, eyes fixed forward, but his mind was sharp, assessing every movement, every shift in Mitchell's behavior. In his years of service, Harris had learned to observe, to read people's intentions, and right now, every instinct was telling him that Mitchell's antics were escalating dangerously. As Mitchell's friends egged him on, the crowd's discomfort became palpable. The jeers and taunts had gone too far, and Harris, despite his stillness, could sense the nervous energy rippling through the onlookers. The tourists who had once found amusement in the situation were now backing away, creating an invisible barrier around the two men. The playful energy had dissipated, replaced by an unspoken realization that things were about to reach a boiling point. Then it happened. With a sudden movement, Mitchell, his pride stinging from the lack of response, leaned in even closer. The air seemed to freeze as he spat directly on Harris's cheek. The crowd gasped, the collective sound of disbelief hanging in the air. Mitchell stood there expecting a reaction, maybe anger, maybe a shout, something to break Harris's composure. What he got instead was something far more powerful than he could have imagined, complete and utter stillness. Harris didn't move, didn't blink, didn't flinch. The spittle slid slowly down his cheek, but his expression remained as cold and unyielding as the palace walls behind him. In that moment, Harris had not only endured the insult, he had transformed the situation entirely, teaching Mitchell and everyone watching that true strength isn't about reacting with force, but standing firm in one's principles. The moment that followed Mitchell's spitting on Harris was surreal. The crowd stood frozen, a collective breath held, unsure of what would happen next. Mitchell, feeling a brief flash of triumph, looked around at his friends, who were filming with eager smiles, anticipating the guard's inevitable breakdown. But what they didn't realize was that Harris had already won. He stood motionless, unshaken, his posture as rigid and disciplined as ever. The spit slowly ran down his cheek, a visual symbol of the insult, but Harris did not allow it to penetrate his composure. For a brief second, time seemed to stand still. The tension in the air grew thicker as Mitchell's bravado started to waver, the weight of the silence pressing down on him. Harris, though unflinching on the outside, was processing every detail of the situation with the clarity that only years of military training could provide. He observed Mitchell's rising frustration, the way his hand kept trembling, and how he continued to inch closer, as if daring Harris to break. It was as if Mitchell, in his desperate quest to assert control, had forgotten that Harris was no ordinary person. Harris wasn't there to entertain or react to provocations. He wasn't simply performing a role. He was living a tradition that demanded respect, one that had withstood centuries. The guard wasn't just a person, standing still. He was a symbol, one that represented the values of duty, honor, and discipline. As Mitchell looked around, the atmosphere began to shift. The lightheartedness of his earlier actions vanished. The crowd, once amused by his antics, now grew uncomfortable. Some parents pulled their children closer, whispering to them in hushed tones about respect and dignity. The mood had changed. People were no longer entertained. They were now witnessing a moment of profound human integrity. The growing realization that Mitchell's behavior had crossed a line was dawning on everyone. And yet, even in the face of this, Harris remained unchanged. He stood there, steadfast and unyielding, as if anchored in time itself. The key here was Harris's decision to not respond in anger. In a world where we are conditioned to react immediately, where a quick comeback or retaliation is often seen as the ultimate defense, Harris had chosen the opposite. His silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. It was a demonstration of power far greater than Mitchell could comprehend. Harris didn't need to speak. His presence, his unwavering commitment to duty, his refusal to be shaken by disrespect, spoke volumes. This moment, though seemingly insignificant in the eyes of many, was a powerful lesson in restraint, strength, and dignity. Harris had shown that the true measure of strength is not in responding to insults, but in standing firm in one's values despite them. As the spit slowly dried on Harris's cheek, the silence that followed was deafening. Mitchell stood there, waiting for a reaction, his eyes scanning the crowd for signs of approval, but all he saw was unease. The tourists who had once laughed at his antics were now looking away, uncomfortable with what had transpired. A few had even stopped filming, their phones hanging limply in their hands as they processed the gravity of the situation. Harris, however, remained unmoved. His calmness in the face of the insult seemed almost surreal, but in that moment, his stillness became the most powerful statement he could make. The crowd, sensing the shift, fell into a quiet that spoke louder than any words could. Harris's decision not to retaliate was a calculated move, one that demonstrated the core of his training. In the military, he had learned that power does not always lie in confrontation. Instead, true strength comes from knowing when to respond and when to remain silent. His military background had taught him the importance of discipline, not just in action, but in restraint. Every part of him, from his posture to his breathing, was trained to remain unshaken no matter the provocation. Mitchell's outburst was just another test of that discipline. Harris, having faced far worse in the line of duty, had no reason to break character now. As the moments dragged on, Mitchell's initial bravado began to fade. The crowd's uncomfortable tension grew palpable, and Mitchell's confidence started to crack. He had expected Harris to break, maybe with a word, maybe with a sudden movement, but instead, he was faced with a wall of unyielding resolve. What Mitchell hadn't anticipated was that Harris's silence wasn't an absence of reaction. It was a choice to let the insult roll off without giving it the power to dictate his actions. This was not weakness as Mitchell had hoped to expose, but a display of unshakable strength. As the silence deepened, Harris finally moved, slowly, deliberately, with precision that felt almost ceremonial. He reached up and wiped the spittle from his cheek, his movements calm and unhurried. The crowd watched in rapt silence as he then addressed Mitchell with a calmness that made every word hit harder than any physical blow could. "You wanted to know if we're human," Harris began, his voice steady and firm. "We are. We feel every insult, every joke, every attempt to break our composure. But we stand firm because that's what duty demands." His words, though measured, were a powerful reminder that some things, like tradition, honor, and respect, are worth standing for, even when faced with disrespect. Harris had not only weathered the insult, he had turned the situation into a moment of profound education, teaching not through anger, but through dignity. The aftermath of Harris's dignified response rippled through the crowd like a wave, leaving a charged silence in its wake. Mitchell, once full of bravado, stood there, his chest rising and falling in rapid, uneven breaths. His friends, who had been so eager to capture the moment, now seemed unsure of themselves. The energy had shifted entirely. What had begun as an attempt to humiliate a royal guard had instead exposed the weakness of the man who had provoked him. While Mitchell had hoped to create a viral spectacle, he had inadvertently provided the world with a lesson in humility and dignity. As the tourists around them began to murmur, the weight of Harris's words sank in. The collective tension in the air had dissolved, but it was replaced by a newfound respect. Parents pulled their children closer, whispering lessons about duty and respect. The crowd that had once stood ready to witness a comedic performance now found themselves part of a moment that transcended the trivial and touched on something much deeper. The social media buzz had begun, but it wasn't focused on Mitchell's antics. Instead, the video of Harris's composed response spread like wildfire, praised across platforms for demonstrating true strength through restraint. Within hours, the incident went viral, but the narrative had shifted completely. What Mitchell had sought as entertainment, Harris had turned into a moment of personal growth for thousands. The message was clear. Disrespect may be met with silence, but silence itself can be more powerful than any retort. Harris had not only maintained his composure, but his poised response had illustrated the kind of strength that can't be faked or bought. It must be earned through years of discipline and sacrifice. In contrast, Mitchell's actions had revealed his vulnerability, his reliance on privilege and bravado, none of which could withstand the weight of true dignity. The viral moment led to widespread praise for Harris's unwavering commitment to his duty, not only as a guard but as a living symbol of the principles of the British monarchy: honor, tradition, and sacrifice. Media outlets and social media users alike shared the video, highlighting how Harris's response had become a global example of the power of character over spectacle. Even in the face of ridicule, Harris had turned a moment of disrespect into a profound demonstration of his unwavering resolve. It wasn't just a victory for him, it was a victory for the values he upheld, values that now resonated far beyond the gates of Buckingham Palace. As the crowd began to disperse, the repercussions of Mitchell's actions continued to unfold, not in the form of a scandal, but as a powerful lesson on respect and the consequences of one's behavior. The incident, once thought to be a moment of fleeting amusement, had instead exposed a profound truth about human dignity, a truth that would echo far beyond the gates of Buckingham Palace. Mitchell's reckless attempt to undermine Harris had backfired spectacularly, but it was not just his public humiliation that made the moment so powerful. It was the way Harris had embodied an unshakable commitment to honor, showing the world what true strength looked like in a moment of provocation. Mitchell's identity, which had once been a symbol of privilege and entitlement, quickly crumbled in the face of the internet's collective scrutiny. The video of the incident spread across social media, but not for the reasons Mitchell had hoped. Instead of celebrating his challenge to authority, it turned into a viral moment that highlighted the stark contrast between his arrogance and Harris's quiet resolve. The response from viewers was overwhelming, with messages pouring in from around the world. People praised Harris for his unwavering composure, noting that his strength came not from physicality, but from a deep sense of purpose and discipline. This was a stark reminder that sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is no response at all. Harris had turned the situation into a victory for dignity, one that resonated with people far beyond the initial circle of witnesses. But the true weight of the moment was not just in the viral aftermath. It was in the ripple effect it caused in society. Conversations began to shift. Parents used the incident to explain to their children the importance of respect, duty, and restraint. Schools discussed the power of discipline over impulsiveness. The story had become more than just an amusing spectacle. It had turned into a teachable moment that transcended the walls of Buckingham Palace and reached audiences worldwide. The viral videos, once filled with jeers and laughter, now conveyed something much more significant, a reminder that respect and dignity should never be taken lightly. Meanwhile, Mitchell's life began to unravel. His actions, initially trivialized by his friends, now had serious consequences. His public image, carefully curated through wealth and privilege, was tarnished, and his social media accounts became flooded with comments condemning his behavior. His social standing, once secured by expensive clothes and exclusive clubs, now felt irrelevant. The true weight of his actions was evident when the judge, during sentencing, highlighted that Mitchell had attacked not just a man, but the very values that Harris stood for. The legal consequences would come, but it was the larger societal judgment that truly impacted him. In the end, Harris remained unchanged. He returned to his post the following day, his commitment to duty unwavering, his resolve even stronger. The world now saw him not just as a soldier, but as a living embodiment of the values he had sworn to protect. And through it all, Harris's actions spoke louder than any viral video could ever capture. In a world that often rewards the loudest voices and most provocative actions, Harris had shown the world that true strength lies in the quiet power of standing firm, unmoved by insults or the desire for attention. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this powerful story. In the face of disrespect and provocation, Guard Harris chose to remain unshaken, turning a moment of humiliation into a profound display of dignity and strength. What do you think about his response? Do you believe that true strength lies in restraint and composure, or would you have reacted differently in his position? Let us know in the comments below where you're watching from and what your personal take is on this moment of confrontation. How do you think Mitchell's actions would have played out if he had shown more respect? Would you have been able to maintain the same level of composure as Guard Harris? We're eager to hear your perspectives, whether you agree or disagree. With the way Harris handled the situation, your thoughts are valuable. If you've been inspired by this story of duty and honor, don't forget to like and share it with friends and family. Your feedback and engagement help us bring more meaningful content to our channel, so don't hesitate to share your insights. And remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss a powerful story like this one. Thank you for being part of this incredible community.